Red or white? Red or white? First segment? How many do you have?
Thank you. Testing. One, two, three. Yeah. One, two. One, two. One, two. One, two. Are you here?
That's good. I got some music I can play.
I think we have a packed program. I don't know that we'll need the music.
Like, something like right now. I'll just put some
We only have 4 more minutes.
Oh my gosh, it's time to start. Okay.
Yeah.
But oh yeah.
This is the.
For my, I think my house potentially. Is there electricity there? Yeah, there is.
Yeah.
See. I'll have it. No one's gonna be sitting, right?
Mm-mm. See, this is the live stream.
We have a good volunteer that we could.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Works. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, and then you could put some on some empty seats.
I'm missing the
So it seems to be okay, but as long as you don't talk too close to the mic.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Okay.
I'm gonna go to the bathroom and then I'll be ready.
Okay. Thank you.
Almost there. Slow us down.
I don't think we'll need the speaker, the music. Yeah.
When they light the candles, I could use a little bit of music.
Okay. Oh,
I'll just try it. I'll just have it ready. If you don't like it, I'll turn it off.
all right.
I just needed about 30 seconds to make sure that we're going to be good.
Okay. You ready?
Almost there. It's going to be worth it, I promise. It's worth waiting 30 seconds.
The only thing it might not come through on the recording.
It'll create some ambience. So.
Okay. Do you want to say these parts? These three?
Why don't you do it since I'm kind of catching up a little.
All right.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
It's good for you to do it. I apologize. I'm a little behind. Almost there.
All right.
Do you have no wire?
We should start because we don't have a
Is there an open Wi-Fi?
house public. House public? It's house public, same thing. Same.
All caps or anything? Or lowercase?
Capital H, capital P. All right, we should begin this mission. You're going to do the Star Spangled Banner, right? Okay. Maybe you could do this while Maurice is.
Oh, yeah. That's true. Yeah.
All right.
I'll do that.
All right, thank you, everyone. We will now begin with the Star Spangled Banner, which will be sung by Rabbi Brian Shamash. Please rise.
Feel free to join your voices with us with love for our wonderful country. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light
What so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. Thank you. And we'll express our love for Israel at the end of the program with Hatikva.
Thank you, Rabbi Brian Shamash. My name is Ephraim Katzir, and I'm the Director of Sephardic Heritage International, or SHIN-DC. Thank you for joining the Iraqi Jewish community, the diplomatic community, and members of Congress, as well as the wider Sephardic Heritage International community, for SHIN-DC's first Congressional Farhud Remembrance. Today we commemorate the victims of the Farhud, an outbreak of anti-Semitic mob violence against Baghdad Jewry that erupted on June 1st, 1941, during the Shavuot Jewish holiday, which we observed just this week. And we hold this program in special memory of Shlomo Mansour. Shlomo Mansour escaped the 1941 pogrom in Iraq, but perished in the October 7th, 2023 Hamas pogrom. We have a hybrid audience today, so we are not only in person on the Hill, but also connecting with participants all over the U.S. and around the world. This commemoration, which we intend to be an annual event, serves to reinforce our memory of the Farhud and its lamented victims, as well as to acknowledge over 2,600 years of Iraqi Jewish life. It also provides an opportunity to stand against anti-Semitism and terror. Special gratitude goes to our community partners, Adas Israel Congregation, and the Hostage and Missing Families Forum. We now invite Maurice Shochet to share his remarks. Maurice Shochet, who is a SHIN-DC board member and represents the World Organization of Jews from Iraq, was an advisor on the project to preserve what became known as the Iraqi Jewish Archive, a cache of Iraqi Jewish documents and books rescued in 2003 from the flooded basement of the Ba'ath Intelligence headquarters in Baghdad. His mother's family survived the Farhud with the help of Muslim neighbors. Maurice.
First, really, I would like to thank Ephraim for this program, together with Ellen Makowski, who thought about the idea of commemorating the Farhud. As you probably know, the Iraqi Jews are considered one of the oldest Jewish communities in the world. Their history is documented from the time of the Babylonian captivity around 586 BCE, which was the year of the destruction of the first temple. The Islamic armies which invaded Babylonia in 638 of the Common Era introduced the nationalist spirit, the Arab nationalist spirit in the land, and the country's name as Iraq. The Jews welcomed the Arab rule, and mutual recognition existed between the two religions, Judaism and Islam. Following the rise of the Ottoman Turks in Asia Minor Baghdad was occupied by the Turks in 1534, and all Iraq was annexed to the Ottoman Empire, which ruled the country until World War I. The collapse of the Ottoman rule and the British conquest of Iraq heralded the beginning of a new era and the establishment of the Kingdom of Iraq. Our talk today is focused on the Farhud, which was the killing and looting of Jews in Iraq, as was said earlier, that took place on the Jewish holiday of Shavuot in 1941. And it was mainly in Baghdad, but also in other cities in the country. The seeds of hatred against the Jews were planted in the 30s of the 20th century, when the people of the Mufti of Jerusalem, Hajj Amin Husseini, shown in the picture, and Hitler emissaries in Baghdad, among them the German envoy Dr. Fritz Grober, were spreading chauvinism linked to anti-Semitism. These steps inflamed militaristic sentiments among leaders and army commanders in Iraq. On April 1st, 1941, a military coup was carried out by 4 military officers nicknamed the Golden Square. They brought the pro-Nazi leader Rashid al-Gaynani into power. While the Regent Abdullah and the ex-premier Nouri Said and other supporters of the Allies escaped from Baghdad. At the beginning of May that year, the pro-Nazi regime declared war on Britain, which lasted until its overthrow at the end of that month. During that period, many Jews were killed and wounded as a result of provocations and incitements. The most serious incident during that month occurred in the northern village of Sandur, when 10 Jews were killed by a mob. This eruption of hostility against the Jews happened despite the fact, and this is very important, that the Rashid Ali revolt had been suppressed, and the regent had in the meantime returned with the British forces in Iraq to Baghdad. Following the failure of their coup, Prime Minister al-Gaylani, the Mufti of Jerusalem, and other leaders of the uprising fled across the Iranian border. Yunus al-Sab'awi, who declared himself military governor of Iraq, invited the head of the Jewish community, giving him assurances about the safety of the Jews. He ordered all Jewish residents to remain at home for a period of 3 days. But during the curfew, al-Sab'awi was overthrown, and Radio Baghdad announced that the restrictions were lifted and normal life could be resumed. On the eve of Jewish holiday of Shavuot, a tense calm reigned in Baghdad. Jews filled the synagogues, where they were warned not to congregate in the streets, lest expression of joy over the suppression of pro-Nazi coup cause reactions among some of the Arab population. According to numerous testimonies, on the first day of the holiday, June 1st, 1941, citizens came out to greet the Regent Abdullah, who was returning from exile. In a scuffle which broke out between Jews and Muslim mobs, 17 Jews were injured. 2 of them died later. At that time, the British Army, which had put down the pro-Nazi revolt, was encamped behind the bridge, but didn't interfere in the scuffle. As Jews left their houses in the afternoon to visit relatives, they were attacked by members of youth squads, soldiers from defeated army units, and hot-headed students. In certain areas, Jewish passengers were pulled out of public buses and slain. As the news of the incidents spread, Jews fled to their homes. Those who did not flee in time were murdered. When no more Jews were found in the streets, the rioters began attacking homes. By 7 o'clock that night, the riots had spread all over Baghdad. Among the rioters were policemen. Army and police officers were seen directing rioters to places suitable to lead to looting and killing. Jewish shops and homes appear to have been marked in advance to facilitate the looting, so that people can know that these are Jewish homes and stores. Soldiers fired machine guns at Jews who were trying to escape by jumping from one roof to another. Into the night, the screams of the assaulted families could be heard, followed by silence after the victims were murdered. The next morning, the riots resumed on an even wider scale. Among the rioters were students and villagers who arrived from the vicinity of Baghdad to participate in the killing, the plunder, and robbery. The attackers were armed with clubs, axes, and knives, supplemented by the weapons of the security officers. Stories were told of rape, mutilation, and massacres of women and children. Old men were slaughtered as they were praying. Many synagogues were desecrated. Fires were raging throughout the night. The rioters consisted of 2 groups. The first were young, educated Arabs incited by foreign elements, such as Palestinians, Syrians, and Nazis, whose objective was none other than murder. The second group, which formed the majority, consisted of ignorant mob that joined the orgy for no other purpose than to rob and loot. Thus, the riots began with the murder of Jews, and only when the news had spread did looters begin to assemble from all directions. It should be noted that there were Muslims who protected their Jewish acquaintances and even risked their lives in doing so. My mother's family was one of those who were protected. How? When they had the home of my grandparents, my mother was still single, living with the family. They had the home marked ahead of time as Jewish home for an attack, preparing the rioters for an attack. So my grandmother asked a Muslim neighbor, if he agrees that they move to his house. He refused, whatever reasons he had, if he was afraid or whatever reasons, she then asked another neighbor. That neighbor was very welcoming. He said, absolutely. He told my mother, you and the whole family that they have 9, 10 children can come to us. I will give you the house. He did. Then the rioters came to attack the original house of my grandparents. People in the street told them, this family moved to that house. So they came to attack the house where my family was given protection. But the owner of the house, not only he gave his place, he prepared security personnel. So when the attackers came, the security people started to shoot in the air to scare the attackers. And that's how my mother's family survived. Of course, they stayed there for 36 hours or so. And that Muslim neighbor became so close to the family, even after his death, the children with my uncles and so on, until our whole family left Iraq. At noon of the second day of the Jewish holiday of Shavuot, the radio announced that the army had entered Baghdad with orders to shoot rioters. Mostly Kurdish soldiers who had pledged allegiance to the regent marched into the city. Shots were heard and rioters were removed from the streets. There were reports of scores of deaths among them. The question has been asked why the British forces and the regent's supporters did not act to prevent the killings when they were capable of doing so. It is generally believed that the regents and the British forces could have prevented the calamity, but instead chose to remain on the sidelines. The apparent reason was that they wanted the masses to find an outlet for their anger, so that they would be in a better position to control the situation. The Iraqi security forces, on the other hand, wanted to gain a victory without outside help. Apparently, the British were not interested in intervening in the internal affairs of Iraq. The known facts and testimonies prove that following the British mandatory rule on Iraq, the British commitment to protect the country's minorities was meaningless. That was reflected also in 1933 when there was a massacre by the local people against the Assyrians. There are different reports about the number of those killed. Some of them say 3,000, the Assyrians says no, 6,000, but they didn't get support from the British. The next day, the Jewish residents of Baghdad left their homes in search of relatives while victims were still being removed. The mayor apologized to a delegation of the Jewish community. Nobody knows exactly the number of casualties. The most common reports mention the number of dead during the 2 days of the Jewish holiday as at least 179. They were buried in mass grave. I don't know the reason for that. My guess is probably the government requested from the community that nobody knows. This grave was eliminated in 1962 when the Iraqi regime at the time wanted to build a tower that was never built eventually. This is another side of the mass grave. The number of wounded between 850 and 2,118. 242 children were orphaned. The government of Jamil al-Madfa'i, which had been formed following the pogrom, expressed its regret, but otherwise failed to act firmly against the perpetrators. Nevertheless, it took certain measures to reassure the wounded Jewish community. Minister Yunus Sab'awi, who had masterminded the carnage and headed the bands of attackers, was sentenced to death and hanged in public. 2 more organizers of the riots were hanged with him. And the 4 Golden Square officers that I mentioned earlier, who had carried out the coup d'etat that brought Rashid Ali to power, were also executed in a military camp. But the Palestinian Mufti Haj Amin al-Husseini and ex-Premier Rashid Ali al-Gailani that we saw them before, who both fled the country, were tried in absentia and sentenced to death. That never happened. Several ministers received prison terms. 6 of the participants in the mass murder were later executed. It took some time for life to return to normal. It should be noted that when Rashid Ali al-Gailani fled to Berlin, he was welcomed by German leader Adolf Hitler. And it's important to mention also the early base for Nazi Middle East intelligence operation during World War II. This is important. In a study published in 1958 by Iraqi historian Abdul Razzaq al-Hassani, 6 factors were cited contributing to the violent attacks on the Jews of Iraq in 1941. First, acts on incitement by the anti-Semitic German envoy in Baghdad, Dr. Fritz Groba. Second, the activities of the Mufti of Jerusalem, Haj Amin al-Husseini, and his retinue. The Mufti exploited nationalistic and Islamic sentiments among the Arab population and succeeded in influencing religious, educational, and military leaders. Third, incitements by Syrian and Palestinian teachers. Fourth, propaganda broadcasts in Arabic from Berlin titled in Arabic, "Here is Berlin, the Arab neighborhood." And you can see the period between 1931 to 1941. It was headed by Yunus Bahri, who was from Iraq, which served the coup of the pro-Nazi Prime Minister al-Gailani. 5, false reports spread by the Iraqi radio about anti-Arab activities by Jews in Palestine, part of a propaganda campaign against the Jews. 6, several youth brigades, such as Al-Futuwa, means boyhood, and Kataib al-Shabab, means youth brigades, which were taught Nazi philosophy by their instructors. Finally, we should note, as you know, that one of the people who was a native of Baghdad and survived the Farhud pogrom in 1941 moved to Israel at the age of 13. His name was Shlomo Mansour, and he was among the founders of Kisufim, a kibbutz located in the southern district of Israel, adjacent to the Gaza Strip. During the October 7, 2023, Hamas-led attack on Israel, Hamas militants from the Gaza Strip targeted Kisufim, brutally murdered Mansour that day and took his body captive to Gaza. He was 85 when he was killed and was the oldest hostage in Gaza. His body was held for nearly 16 months before finally being returned to Israel in late February 2025 as part of a hostage prisoner swap. Tomorrow, or I would say, as you know, last night, the bodies of two kidnapped people were brought dead. They were Americans as well. So tomorrow will mark 609 days since Hamas broke a ceasefire, invaded Israeli communities with thousands of bloodthirsty terrorists, and massacred 1,200 people. There are still 556 innocent people held in Hamas captivity, including 2 Americans. It's up to us to be their voice while they can't speak for themselves. We should continue to fight for their freedom. Thank you.
Thank you, Maurice. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that poignant history with us. You give us just one moment, bear with us. We're going to adjust something with the stream for those who are watching. Okay, Rabbi Brian Shamash, who is of Iraqi Jewish heritage, will now lead memorial prayers.
It's such a deep privilege to be here with you, and the meditations and thoughts that led up to this day have been part of my life since I was a very little boy, and my father shared with me the moments of the Farhud when they knocked on his door. And it was a righteous Muslim, one of our very good friends and workers, came and said, "This is my house." So this Farhud has resonated, and the pain and the anguish of the friends that were lost, the women and friends that were raped, still resonates even for a son and even for my children as grandchildren. And so we join together in some prayers that I've gathered together on the sheet. So if everyone has a sheet, we'll take it out together. And I composed a piyut that we can read together. I'll chant for you. And then we'll also say a prayer for the release of those who are still remaining in Gaza. An opportunity for us to say Shema Yisrael, to ask for forgiveness, and then Tehillim, and then a memorial prayer and the Kaddish. So first, I'll chant for you this piyut that was composed special for this commemoration, with verses from Echa, verses from Tanakh, from Tehillim, and also some reflections. ישבה עבדת העיר רבות יום מחוץ זו שפכך מים דמם של אנשים. בכי נשמע ברמה רחם ובקע על פניה. ביום חג השבועות שנת הפרש שרי א' לספרייה ברבה ועתיקה בבגדד פרוב חיים ויד החזקה. The Jewish people were slaughtered, and their women and children were shamefully disgraced. הנערות בה ושם ישבנו, גם בכינו, בזוכרנו את ציון. אדוני שפתי תפתח, ופי יגיד תהילתך. My God, why have you forsaken me? Far from my deliverance are my words of anger. אל תסתר פניך ממני ביום צלי. אטר אוזנך ביום אקרא מראה עיניני. Remember what has befallen us. Look and see our disgrace. For Adonai will not forsake his people, nor will he abandon his heritage. עוד אבנך ונבנית בתולת ישראל. אם אשכחך ירושלים, תשכח ימיני. זכר צדיקים לברכה. יהיו לרצון עם לפי והגיון ליבי לפניך. אדוני צורי וגואלי. And we continue to this present moment, thinking of those that are hungry, those who are starving in Gaza today, those who are in the dark, those who are facing the most difficult mental and physical challenge of their lives. And we join together in prayer for their release. Achenu kol beit Yisrael, Achenu kol beit Yisrael, הנתונים בצרה ובשביה, העומדים בין בים ובין ביבשה. המקום ירחם עליהם, ויוציאם מצרה ויבכה, ומאפל אריורה, ומשיבון יגולה, השתם בגלה, ובזמן קריב. המקום ירחם עליהם, ויוציאם מצרה לרווחה, ומאפל אריורה, ומשיבון יגולה, השתם בגלה, ובזמן קריב. Now on the next page, each of these verses will say twice. So I'll recite an improvisation, but then I ask you to respond with the fullest voices, with a full heart, recognizing the oneness of our universe, the oneness of all people, recognizing the forgiveness that every Jew is trying to achieve on an individual basis every day, and the forgiveness that we are trying to achieve collectively, and also the blessing of our tradition, our Talmud Torah, our ability to argue in the most vociferous ways and then give a big hug to our chavruta. So we understand how to be in conflict and also how to listen. So let's take that moment to listen, to hear our voices in response to Shema Yisrael and our oneness. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Ana Adonai Hoshiana. Ana Adonai Hoshiana. Ana Adonai Hatzlichana. Ana Adonai Hatzlichana. Adonai Melech, Adonai Malach, Adonai Imloch, Le'olam Wa'ed. Adonai Adonai Elohim. Adonai Hu Elohim. And let's read together Esa Enai. Esa Enai el Heharim me'ayin yavo Ezri. Ezri me'im Adonai oseh shamayim va'aretz. Al yiten lamot raglecha, hayanum shomrecha. Hine lo yanum velo yishan shomer Yisrael. Adonai shomrecha, Adonai tzilcha ayad yeminecha. Yomam hashemesh lo yakeka, v'yareach balayla. Adonai yishmorcha mikol ra, yishmor et nafshecha. Adonai yishmor tzedcha uvoecha, me'ata ve'ad olam. Now I ask all of you to rise as we say memorial prayer and then the Kaddish. Marab tuvcha shetzapata yerecha Palta lecho simbach neged bnei Adam. Ma yakach hasecha Elohim ubnei Adam. Ubnei Adam b'tzeh knafecha yeches hayun. כל אחינו בני ישראל, כל אחינו בני ישראל, שמסרו את נפשם על קידוש השם, ואת האנשים, נשים וטף, שנחנקו ושנשרפו, ושנהרגו בפרוד בעם שאנו מתפללים ועל הזכרת נשמתם בגן עדן מנוחתם, אנא בעל הרחמים, הסירם בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בצור החיים את נשמותיהם. אדוני הוא נחלתם. מי ינוחו בשלום, ושלום, ושלום על משכבותיהם, ונאמר Amen. May God remember the souls of the martyrs of our people who gave their lives for the sanctification of God's name, the men and the women and the children who were slaughtered in the Farhud. May our lives reflect a measure of their bravery, their dedication, and the purity of their souls. May their souls be bound up in the bond of life, and may they rest in peace. And we say, Amen. And now we join in the mourner's Kaddish. יתגדל ויתחדש שמי רבה, ועלמה דיברה חירותה וימליך מלכותה, ויצמח פורקנה ויקרב משיחה. בחיי חון וביומי חון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ויאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם ולעלמי עלמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה שמך וקדושה בריחו, לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמה ויאמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו אמן. May the source of peace, may Hamakom, may God always guide us towards peace as lovers of peace. And we say, Amen.
Thank you, Rabbi Brand Shamash. We will now light candles for all those who perished in the Farhud. As I call the names of honored guests for the memorial candle lighting, we ask that you please come to the front and light. Congressman Randy Fine. Yeah. Maurice Chochet. Rabbi Stuart Weinblatt and Simcha Weinblatt was born in Baghdad. So Ilan Carr. Daria Meltzer, Rita Shuker, also Richard Fulton. We also thank for having the idea to do this Farhud Remembrance. Thank you, Richard, and also his wife, Orit Fulton. So Nikki Goldman, Shlomo Yahana. And for the sake of time, we ask all the Iraqi Jews present and their families to please stand while we light.
I light the candle for my father, Fuad Gigi, my mother, Rina Gigi, were born in Basra and came to the country, came to Israel and then to the United States, in honor of my other side of the family, the Suleimans. All of them are watching now and remembering the Farhud. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We now welcome Congressman Randy Fine to the podium to share his remarks.
Well, thank you, and thank you for having me. I am the newest Jewish congressman here in Washington. I know that because I was elected April 1st, and no one after me, not to make light of it, but it wasn't an April Fool's joke. So here I am. I want to thank all of you for being here. I want to thank you for commemorating the Farhud. I want to thank you for having this event. If for no other reason, by being here, by commemorating this, you send an important message, something that people in the world need to understand. The idea of pogroms is unfortunately not a rare instance in the history of our faith. You know, attacks of the Jews did not begin on Sunday in Boulder, Colorado. They did not begin 2 weeks ago, just a mile from here. They did not begin on October 7th, 18 months ago. They did not begin in the Holocaust. They did not begin in Iraq. They did not begin in the pogrom that killed my grandmother's family. These go back in our faith thousands and thousands of years. And the fact that you are here to remember and to commemorate it shows that they have not beaten us. I live this every day. I have 2 Jewish boys. They're the reason I'm in Congress. I don't fear the judgment of voters. I fear the judgment of my sons, Jacob and David. I grew up in Lexington, Kentucky. It wasn't an easy place to be a Jewish kid. People ask, how did a Jewish guy get to Kentucky? I said, there's a university. My dad was a professor. You'll always find Jews there. And it wasn't an easy place to grow up. They used to call me a Kentucky Fried Jew. It wasn't a term of endearment. It was what they wanted to do to me. And I had a rough go of it. In junior high, I made many a trip to the doctor or the emergency room because I was Jewish. And one day when I was 13 years old, I made a commitment to myself that I would never apologize ever again, not that I had, but I would never apologize for who I was. I would never be afraid of who I was, and I would never again let anyone treat me the way that I had. And when my children were born, I made a promise to them that they would not lead the kind of life that I had to. They were in Florida, so that's better if you're Jewish, right? But they wouldn't. That they would not have to deal with the sort of anti-Semitism that I had to deal with. And it is a promise to them that I have inherently failed miserably. Because as bad as it was for me, when I looked back on the Holocaust, I thought of black and white movies. I thought about movies like Schindler's List. I thought about books that I had read. I didn't realize that the Holocaust had simply gone into hibernation, only to be brought out decades later. And so the promise that I made to them when they were born, I failed to live up to as a member of the Florida legislature, which is where I served for 8.5 years. And so it brought me to here to try to deliver on that promise to them. Now, I believe that God puts us where he wants us to be. I should not be here. I got elected to the Florida Senate 7 months ago. I'm here, frankly, because President Trump asked me to run when he asked my predecessor, Mike Waltz, to join him in the administration. He called on me to run. In fact, I found out I was running when he tweeted it out. So actually, I found out because I was taking a nap the Saturday before Thanksgiving. It was Shabbat. I'm taking a nap. My wife calls and yells and wakes me up, not uncommon. Married, and I say, what did I do? And she goes, obviously I did it. It's something me, never her fault. And she said, why are my friends calling me, telling me you're running for Congress? I said, I don't know. And I got on my phone and I looked around and I saw that President Trump had tweeted out that I was running for Congress. So that's how I got to do this. So I shouldn't be here. But being here in the times that we are in and what we've seen in this country in the last few weeks reminds me again that God puts us where he wants to be. And so we, in remembrance of all of those that we know, I tell the story of my family to non-Jewish groups. I tell the story of the pogrom of my grandmother who died, or she didn't die, or 9 of her brothers and sisters died in a pogrom in Russia over 100 years ago. The only reason that she didn't die is that she was at the bottom of the pile, along with her 2 youngest brothers. And she told the story about how she couldn't get out of the pile. It took hours for her to be rescued because there were so many bodies of her family on top of her that she couldn't get out. She was 3 years old. That she told me the story about feeling her family go cold as she laid there, unable to move, their blood dripping into her eyes. And so I think about these stories. I think about the stories of your families. I say, what are we going to do about it? Because we now live in a time that, frankly, many of us may never have expected to live in here in the United States, and where we have a choice that we have to make, which is, are we going to deal with the threats that face us today? You know, the fact of the matter is, in this country, we have been afraid to call evil for what it is. These chants that we hear on our college campuses, they are not peaceful chants. They're not calls for people to get together. They're the latest in a long line of calls for our death and our destruction. Because make no mistake, the things that we see in Israel, they just want to go there first. I tell people all the time, the only difference between Israel and America for these folks is Israel's little and Israel is close. That's it. And I think of the exhibit at Yad Vashem. Many of you have been there. The exhibit where you see the plans of the Nazis. That what makes the Holocaust unique in our history is it's the only time, the idea of killing a group of people that you don't like is unfortunately not unique. Happens all the time, unfortunately. But what people typically say is, I don't like this group of people where I live, and I'm going to try to kill them all, and then I'm done. The idea of saying, I'm going to try to go around the world and find everyone that I don't like, even if they don't live here. I'm going to get rid of them where I am, and then I'm going to go to the country next door, and the country next door, and the country next door, and I'm going to try to conquer the world in order to exterminate them all. That is what made the Holocaust unique until now. The only difference between Israel and the United States is they're close and they're little. They want to come here next. So you being here today to prove and to talk about history that most people don't know about, most Jews don't know about it, let alone non-Jews, because it is so common in our history to have had these sort of things. So you being here, giving your testimony, talking about what happened, reminding people that we have dealt this in time immemorial, gives me the strength to do what I know that I have to do, to be a fighter for our people. I'll close with this. You see me wearing a kippah, and I'm very sensitive to it, because I have not always worn a kippah. I put on a kippah for the first time, other than when I go to services, but to actually live, I put it on for the first time May 7th of this year. Now, I did it because we had a hearing. I'm on the education committee. We had a hearing about anti-Semitism. And my 17-year-old son, one of the two that I do this for, said, Dad, I know you're going to have this hearing where you're going to talk to university presidents about why they don't like Jews, and I think you should wear a kippah. I said, why? He goes, because I got a lot of friends at college today that don't feel safe wearing theirs. So why don't you do it and make them uncomfortable? So I did. This is actually my 13-year-old son's bar mitzvah kippah. You can see his theme. His theme was Israel. That's what he wanted to do. He said he was too old for Scooby-Doo, so he wanted to do Israel. So this is my 13-year-old son's bar mitzvah kippah. So I said, my 17-year-old said, you should wear the kippah, and I did, and I got really great reaction from doing it. And so then he said, I think you should keep doing it until all Jewish kids feel safe, which may mean, unfortunately, that I wear it for the rest of my life. But it's interesting. It has some downsides. I never kept kosher. This is sort of the back-ended way. I can't go to the event. I say, oh, there's the shrimp. I reach for it, and then people look at me. So My rabbi is quite bemused by it. I'm ending up there, but what it shows is that we have a fight not only for those that we have lost, for those who have come before us, but we have that fight for our children. And while I represent the 6th District of Florida, which is a part of 1/28th of the state, 1/435th of the country, and I care very much about what happens in those 6 counties in Florida, make no mistake, I'm also here to represent you. They gave me the nickname, I didn't come up with it, but they gave me the nickname in the Florida legislature, the Hebrew Hammer. And I assure you of this, if you pay attention in the weeks and months to come, you will find out why I got that nickname. So thank you all very much for having me today. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman Randy Fine. It was your fitting remarks. We appreciate you. We appreciate the Hebrew Hammer. Thank you. Maccabee. Patish. All right. So thank you. We appreciate you. And we now welcome Ilan Carr to share his remarks. Ilan is the CEO of the Israeli-American Council and former U.S. envoy to monitor and combat anti-Semitism. He's also of Iraqi Jewish heritage.
Ephraim and Maurice and everyone who organized this, my goodness, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, how lucky are we to have a United States congressman who says, I'm putting on a kippah so that everyone knows how proud I am and that I'm fighting for our Jewish people. How lucky are we? It's just amazing. And mazal tov. Before I talk about why we're here today, I want to point out that I have, among the many heroines in my life, there are 2 I want to talk about. When Iraq was liberated by the United States from the barbaric Ba'athist savagery of Saddam Hussein, 2 Iraqi Jewish women, unprotected, unlike us, we were in gun trucks and uniforms and M16s, came to Iraq to help with Iraqi reconstruction. Iraqi Jews came unprotected to work with Iraqis to help Iraq build a better country. Both of those women are here today, Carol Basri and Huda Rafael. I want to thank them for amazing dedication to a better future for all of us. I'm very proud to be here as the son of a community that is not only the oldest diaspora Jewish community, as Maurice correctly said, but a community remarkable in its influence and in its success. A community that produced really the first expression of yearning for Zion in the diaspora. I mean, if Zionism was born in Parashat Lech Lecha, when God says to Abraham, go forth to a land that I will show you, the first expression of the yearning to return to Zion was not in 1948, was not in 1800 with the first Zionist Congress. It wasn't after the Roman dispersion. It was 2,500 years ago. In the words that we just read, Al Naharot Bavel Sham Yashavnu Vebachinu Besachenu Et Zion, if I forget thee, O Jerusalem, may my right hand wither. It is a community that wrote the Talmud. It is a community that established the first yeshivot in history at Nahardea and Sura and Pumbedita. It is a community that produced a long lineage of kings, literally kings, the line of King David, the Judaic kings, coronated in exile in Iraq, what is today Iraq. The exilarch, Reish Galuta, a community that gave us among the greatest rabbinical judges in history, all the way up to the present day. And a community that in business spread throughout the Far East, establishing remarkable centers of commerce that changed the Far East. In Shanghai and in Hong Kong and in Rangoon and in Singapore and in Bombay and in Calcutta, and the list goes on. I want to tell you a story. We're here to commemorate the Farhud, this horrific pogrom, and of course, Shlomo Mansour, Hashem Yinkum Damo, who lost his life in the last horrific pogrom. But make no mistake, the Farhud was the beginning of the end of that community. A few years later, in 1948, when Iraq declared war on Israel, Jews were summarily rounded up throughout the country. I want to tell you the story about a little girl who heard a knock at the door, not the kind of knock that Maurice heard. It was Iraqi security forces who said, "Is your father home?" It was early in the morning. He still had shaving cream on his face. And they came and took him away. They threw him in prison. They subjected him to a Stalinist show trial that served only to confirm the sentence long since decided, and they put him in prison. That young girl visited her father in prison until the family finally escaped and fled, made their way to Israel and then to the United States. That young girl is my mother, and that man who was in prison is my grandfather, a prisoner of Zion who sat in prison in Iraq for 5 years for no reason other than his being Jewish. Your uncle too. This is a common story. And of course, by the way, I have to say, Congressman, as you so powerfully said, I mean, the plight of the Jews of Iraq in almost every case pales in comparison to the suffering of what European Jews endured during that same period. But I want to focus my remarks not so much on the past, but on the future. Because in the story of the Farhud and in the story of Iraqi Jewry, we, I think, have a roadmap and a powerful choice for what the future of the Middle East will be like and what the future of the Jewish people will be in that story. You see, throughout the course of those millennia, Iraqi Jews, during much of that history, had it pretty good. Even into the 20th century. Remarkable prosperity, yes, dhimmi status and dhimmi taxes, but remarkable prosperity and influence. That was the case in Iraq, it was the case in the Levant, it was the case in North Africa, of course, the golden age of Spain. But then there's the other story. The pogroms and the blood libels and the slaughter and the imprisonment. And so now, as we sit here to commemorate those very, very bad years, there is one question that all of us have to ask. Which path will the Middle East take? What choice will the Arab world make? Will it be the choice of the Palestinian Nazis who imported vicious racial supremacism into the Arab world? Will it be the choice of the Damascus blood libel and so many other pogroms throughout history? Or will it be the philo-Semitism that we saw exhibited throughout much of that history? A philo-Semitism, by the way, I would argue, that made the Muslim empire a source of remarkable tolerance and advancement in medicine and in the arts and in the sciences. The Arab world today, of course, sits in many cases in abject poverty and in a state of disaster. Having served for a year in Iraq, I can tell you the Arabs themselves know how fraught and how catastrophic their present is. And yet, we are now at a point of remarkable opportunity. I would say unprecedented change. Thanks to President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu, and yes, leaders in the Arab world, we have the Abraham Accords. When I was U.S. Special Envoy, I traveled to the Gulf. I can tell you the Abraham Accords aren't simply a piece of paper. I stood at the foot of the world's tallest building, the Burj Khalifa, during Hanukkah, where a huge Chanukiah, of course, thanks to Chabad, lit the plaza. But not only thanks to Chabad, there were enormous crowds of people, including many, many Israelis who had come to celebrate Hanukkah. Could you imagine? Come to celebrate Hanukkah in the Arab Gulf? And they were singing songs of Hanukkah, and not only songs of Hanukkah, one of the songs is the one I just quoted, Im eshkechech Yerushalayim, tishtach yemini. If I forget thee, O Jerusalem, may my right hand wither. And with tears in my eyes, I looked around at this vista and I saw crowds of Arabs. Yes, some in suits and yes, some in jeans, but some in jalabiyas, clapping and exulting in this open display of Judaism and Jewish pride at the foot of the world's tallest building, an icon of Arab achievement. If we stick together, if we make the right decisions today, if we stand unequivocally and uncompromisingly with the state of Israel and its just project to be strong and powerful and safe and successful in the face of its genocidal enemies, and if we contain the vicious evil of the Islamic Republic of Iran and support our friends in the Arab world, the future that we can make together is a future whose blessings we can't even begin to imagine. Could you imagine an Arab world that embraces philo-Semitism, not anti-Semitism? Can you imagine the business and the prosperity in the Middle East that would elevate and raise all of the region's children? When we come here together, here in this great building, in the world's greatest, most powerful parliament, to commemorate the Farhud, it is not only to history that we are paying service. We are making a demand. Today we are making a demand, and we say enough is enough. Enough with the pogroms and the Jew hatred and the barbarity, the medieval savagery, enough. Today we make the demand that we want to build that better future, the Abrahamic Accords future, so that we can truly make tikkun olam b'malchut Shaddai, perfecting the world under the sovereignty of the Almighty. And wouldn't that be a great gift to our children? Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Alankar, for showing us a brighter future. Our next speaker, do you have a video? So you give me a moment.
Best greetings from Iraq, Erbil. Ladies. The best greeting and etc. The best greetings.
Our next speaker, Mithal Al-Lusi, is a former two-term member of the Iraqi parliament. Since the fall of the Saddam Hussein regime, he has consistently advocated for Iraqi-Israeli friendship and peace, and he has visited Israel on several occasions. As a result of his first visit some 2 decades ago, his car was ambushed by armed Iraqi fanatics. Miraculously, Mithal emerged safely, but his 2 sons, his only children, Ayman and Jamal, were killed. Nevertheless, Mithal continued his forthright advocacy for peace with Israel, a view he frequently airs on Iraqi media to this day. He has also been forthright in calling for Iraq to connect to Iraqi Jewish communities around the globe and to connect to the Jewish dimension of Iraq's past. We have the privilege to play for you now Mithal Al-Lusi's remarks on this day memorializing the Farhud.
The best greetings from Iraq, Erbil. Ladies and gentlemen, it is always very unique for us Iraqi to talk about the Iraqi Jewish history. They were very active and very important. They did build the Iraqi society, the modern society. They were very active in business, in health sector, in education, in art, and we are so proud of them. Till now, we we talk very positive about the first Iraqi finance minister. Till now, even those Islamists who they have the government today, they say he was the best Iraqi finance minister. So the Iraqi Jewish till 1941, they were in very active role in Iraq. In those years, in the 40, before the 40, there is a gentleman, his name is Amin al-Husseini. He is the Mufti from Al-Qudus. He ran away from his home because he believed in Hitler, he believed in what Hitler has done by Second World against the Jewish in general and the Holocaust. He ran away also from Lebanon, from Syria, and then he came to Iraq with his people. Then he started in Baghdad to have some political dialogue. He was so close to Mr. Rashid Ali Gailani, the Iraqi Prime Minister that days. He became his position, the third position as an Iraqi Prime Minister. He was close to him and started to influence Rashid Ali Gailani and some Iraqis to win them for Hitler. The British, they watch and they attack Rashid Ali Gailani government. They clean the government, Rashid Ali Gailani, the Prime Minister, and Mr. Amin al-Husseini and his fellows. They ran away. They went to Berlin, to Hitler, to Germany. So in last day, June 1st or 2nd, we have a real government vacuum because of there is no government because of what we call it the British-Iraqi war, and the new government doesn't take place because of Amin al-Husseini, the Mufti from Jerusalem, because of his people, because of those who they did believe in Hitler. They did push the some Iraqis, some criminal, some, I don't know, maybe just they used them really to attack the Iraqi Jewish in Baghdad with the idea that the Jewish in general, they are supporting the British in the Second World. And that's why they have been attacked, because the British also, they did attack Rashid Ali Gailani. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a very black day in the Iraqi history. We call it Al-Farhud. More than 180 Iraqi civilists, Iraqi Jewish human beings, they have been killed. About 1,000 Jewish civilists, they have been wounded. Many thousands people, houses, business, they have been attacked. Some destroyed, they stole it, and etc. This is a very black day in Iraqi history. No one in Iraq is proud of it, unless some new Islamist, pan-Arab Nazi, maybe. Even those, they are not ready to talk about it. We did lost the Iraqi Jewish, we did lost the beautiful history, and we still, with the hope that one day we will have a peaceful talk between Iraq and Israel. Of course not the Iranian, who they are close to the Islamist parties or close to Iran, and because, and sure also not the people who they are so happy of October 7. We thought, I see it also, many of us, we believe October 7 is like the Farhud in Baghdad. Ladies and gentlemen, it is not fair. It is really not fair. And it is also an Iraqi need to win the Iraqi Jewish back, to win their activities, to win our Iraqi history. We did lost now everything, Iran controlling everything, the militia, who they did kill many human beings, Iraqi and non-Iraqi. They are active, they have the government. I do believe one day Iraq will be free. I do believe the area is going to have peace, and I hope that the Abraham Corps will be stronger than today, and I hope to see Iraq one part of it. Farhud was a black day. doesn't reflect the Iraqi history, doesn't reflect the Iraqi character, and who they pay the price of it, the Iraqi Jewish and the Iraqi society. God bless you. Thank you very much.
My name is Dalia Burgana. I am sure.
Okay. We will now share with you remarks from Dalia Burgana, the cousin. We'll now share with you remarks from Dalia Burgana, the cousin of Shlomo Mansour of blessed memory, who survived the Farhud in 1941, only to perish on October 7th in the Jewish state.
My name is Dalia Burgana. I am Shlomo Mansour's cousin. I'm speaking about him as a cousin, but for me, he was like a big brother. The reason that he was a big brother for me is because my mother raised him in Iraq. Shlomo was born in Iraq, and as a little child, my mother was a very young aunt, and he was his favorite nephew. Shlomo Mansour survived the Holocaust in Iraq. It was the Farhud Holocaust of the Jewish community in Iraq. It was a period of terror, fear, and violence. Many people were killed, women were raped, children were killed, and it was a very terror period for the Jewish people of Iraq. Shlomo survived this period, but unfortunately didn't survive the second Holocaust in Israel on October 7th. It was the second Holocaust that we faced here, and unfortunately didn't survive. It was a terror attack. They kidnapped up, Hamas terrorists kidnapped up him from his house. And since then, there is a big gap in our life, in the family life, and we couldn't overcome it. Shlomo was a very good person, a man that has a big heart, gold heart. He reached his hand for everybody who need help. He was a good husband for his wife, and good father and good grandfather. Since then, we try to remember him in every occasion. But I would like to thank you on behalf of Mansour family and on behalf of all the family of the hostages that became suddenly one big family and we share the same destiny. Thank you for helping us to remember him forever.
So this concludes today's program. Thank you for joining us on the occasion of the 84th anniversary of the murder of many Jews in Iraq on June 1st through 2nd, 1941. It is important to remember those who were massacred at the time and how one of them who survived the manslaughter ended up being killed by Hamas on October 7th. Furthermore, Hamas's brutal attack on Jewish communities in southern Israel on October 7th, 2023 reminds us of the violence against the Baghdadi Jewish community in 1941. It's also very timely to stand against anti-Semitism and terror as we have today. The story of Maurice Shochet's mother being saved by Iraqi Muslims and the support of leaders like Mital al-Alusi demonstrate that this does not have to be about one people against another, but it's about human beings coming together with goodwill to stand against all kinds of hate, including anti-Semitism, and standing against terror so that these scourges have no place in our society. This week in Colorado, a Molotov cocktail was thrown at a group of Jews marching peacefully on behalf of hostages held by Hamas. In Washington, D.C. last month, 2 Israeli embassy staff members were gunned down in cold blood. In Paris, the Holocaust Museum was defaced. In London, a Jewish business was vandalized with red paint and smashed windows. Recent attacks in 3 different countries. The perpetrators didn't know each other, and yet they are all deeply connected to a rise in anti-Semitism. The spirit of the Farhud is not just limited to Baghdad in 1941. It's alive today, and this is why it's so important to do this commemoration and why it's so important to work together across peoples and across the political aisle to stand against the scourge of baseless hatred. Sephardic Heritage International, or SHIN-DC, is a pluralistic nonprofit organization that builds intercultural bridges and understanding while raising awareness of Sephardic and other underrepresented Jewish heritages. Through a focus on celebrating Sephardic and other underrepresented Jewish heritages and their potential for cross-cultural bridge building, SHIN-DC engages in cultural diplomacy by bringing together diverse communities and working closely with the diplomatic community and the U.S. Congress. Thank you all for joining us this evening. We invite you to keep connecting with us. And I would like to thank the following participants for their support: Deb Hennessy, Sarah Bloomberg, Sarit Brosh, Jerome Dances, Ori Etzion, Dimitri Feinberg, Eva Fontheim, Rami Loya, Suzanne Meyer, Suzanne Newberg, Lane Shankridge, Rita Shucker, Shlomo Yahana, and Debbie Hennessy in honor of her dad, Albert Shackridge, and entire Iraqi Jewish family members. Also Hannah Cohen, New York, Zahava Machlab, Eli Uriel, Diane Zilka, in blessed memory of her father, Samuel Sassoon Harun Zilka, his parents, Harun Zilka and Tobwa Zilka, her beautiful aunts, Madeline, Violet, Mary, and Clarice, and her lovely uncle, Nadim. Also Amnon Kashi, Los Angeles, Mitchell Mu'alam, Tucson, Arizona, Irv Mu'alam, Bayside, New York, Doris Hamburg, Jamie Frank, Andrew Ackerman, and Victoria Farhan in memory of Juliet Farhan. Thank you. Please rise for Hatikvah.
While we experienced tremendous loss, we also received Medinat Yisrael following the Farhud. And so, with our voices resounding with thankfulness for this wonderful country of the United States of America and the connection that we have to Israel, sing with all of your voices that the hope can continue to bring us forward for a world full of love. Kol od balevav penima nefesh Yehudi homia ulfate mizrach kadima ayin letzion Sophia. Oh Lord, tikvatenu, hatikva bat shnot alapayim, liotam chofshi be'artzenu, Eretz Zion v'Yerushalayim. Liotam chofshi be'artzenu, Eretz Zion v'Yerushalayim. And special thanks to Ephraim Katzir, incredible. Thank you. Next year you can have 300 people, raise $100,000.
How you doing?
Good.
Remember from
Yes.
So nice. Got connected with you. Remember I showed you pictures of so back then?
Yeah. Nice. Send me another message so we reconnect again.
We'll send.
I want to introduce my sister Elizabeth this year.
Oh, yeah.
Come in here.
You came from Israel, no?
Yeah, I came all the way from New York.
I want to ask you, was your predecessor Chazan Dardashti?
That's where I grew up with him, with Dardashti in Baltimore.
He was in